Business as Unusual is a thought-provoking podcast that explores the innovative strategies, disruptive ideas, and unconventional practices driving successful leaders and companies in the ever-evolving world of modern business. Subscribe, comment, and share for weekly inspiration with our host, Aisala.
Hello. I feel like I should be rocking out to start the things today because of my guest, Rich, who is Rock and Roll Reimagined. And it sounds like a catchy title, but it's actually also a very interesting story. So I'm really excited to have you here today. And super delighted to have you talk about your journey and to share with people what you're up to and how you got here. So want to introduce yourself a little bit and we'll go forward from there.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated. I love being on the show with you. Name is Rich Chambers. And as you said, I'm Rock and Roll Reimagined is a tagline I've come up with. And there's many iterations that got me to that point. But to give a bit of background, I dub myself a middle-aged rocker. That's the reality. That's who I am. And the very first podcast I did since I started this, I'll backtrack. I'll give you a little bit of history about me.
Okay.
I grew up around music. My dad played guitar, and my mom was listening to music like no tomorrow. And I can remember sitting, at family functions. My dad pulled his guitar, and I'd be fascinated what he's doing. I'd grab my little Mickey Mouse toy guitar, and I'd play along with him, thinking I was playing with him. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I also remember one of the most profound memories I have, because for me, songwriting is what it's all about. I love playing guitar. I love singing. But they would have just been hobbies if I hadn't found a passion for songwriting. And I can remember when I was a 5-year-old kid, I was sitting with my dad, and he's the only time I think when I was a kid where I ever actually stayed quiet and stayed still. And he was sitting in front of the record player, and he dropped the needle on the record, and he'd write down the words of the song. He'd figure out the chords, and I sat there just kind of jaw dropped, fascinated with the process, with what he was doing. And I was only 5 years old at the time, and I figured that's where the passion for songwriting started. And when I was 10 years old and large enough or big enough to get my hands wrapped around a guitar, my mom put me in guitar lessons, and I was having fun. And it didn't really take until I wrote my first song at 14. I was joined rock and roll bands in high school. I was in the school band, and I wrote my first song. I went, holy cow, this is something else. I can create music. And it was pretty rudimentary. I still remember it, but it's a rudimentary song, but that started me off on the sort of rock and roll thing. And going through high school, I played in a high school band, and we got fairly successful in the community. And out of high school, I was going to be a rock star. Yeah, here I go. Mm-hmm. A cocky kid that I was. I barely passed high school. And then I did about a year working a very menial job and trying to be a rock star. And very quickly, after playing some pretty cheesy dives and in places like that, I realized, oh my goodness, Rich, this is going nowhere. I did one of the smartest things I've ever done in my life. I went back to school. Mm-hmm. That was one of the best things I ever did. And it's funny because I often laugh. Just the other couple of years ago, I was toying with doing a PhD, and here's somebody barely passed high school is on the verge of going into a PhD. So I got a bachelor's degree and master's degree on the way. I'm a huge, huge advocate of education. Education rocks. Massive advocate of education. So that was one of the best moves I ever did. And along the way, started a family, and I had my kids, and I got into another band, and we played together about 15, 16 years. So I've always kept it going, and I've always kept music going. And there's a moment about 3 years ago, and very profound moment, because I think we all have our moments where we're looking in that metaphorical mirror of life, and you're looking at yourself and say, what am I doing? Or where am I going? What's this all about? And I looked in the mirror one day, and I said, Rich, this is your passion. Why are you not doing this? And I looked at myself, and I realized I didn't have an answer to that question. So I made my commitment right then and there to myself to go full in and go after music like no tomorrow. And that was about 3 years ago, and one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I have absolutely no regrets. So I often joke to people, the first podcast I was on, I didn't realize what I was saying. And the interview started laughing so hard. And I said, I hit a midlife crisis, but instead of buying a convertible and getting a young girlfriend, I bought a guitar and started recording music. And he starts laughing away. And I thought, gee, that's the truth though. And that's sort of where Rock and Roll Reimagined came from. And along the way, it's been an amazing journey, because now I've got Spotify streams. I got one song's up over 1.2 million streams. I got a bunch of them in the 100, 200,000 range. I've been getting airplay all around the world. And it's I had a cool moment about a year ago. I was talking to a station in New Zealand, and this music director said, "Oh yeah, Rich, we're playing your music." I said, "Great." So I went on the website to find out what they're about, and they happened to be playing my song right then and there. And I'm up on the corner, there's a picture of me and my song's playing live. And I thought, this is so cool. And the song finished, and I'm just kind of go, wow, this is awesome. I heard myself on the radio, and John Lennon's Imagine follows right after. And I'm thinking, wow. I'm in company with John Lennon. This rocks. So I had that moment where, wow, I must be doing something right. That was a station in New Zealand. And so I've had stations and lots of stations in Europe. And this is just radio. Radio's a tough nut to crack, that's for sure. But I'm starting to make headways there, and starting to gain. And recently I've had a huge following in Mexico. I've had my Google Translator. I'm trying to translate all my Spanish into English, and that's been amazing to find out. I've had reviews translated in Portuguese, Mexican, or Spanish, French, English. I mean, it's awesome to get this sort of coverage worldwide. And I like to think that I'm sort of banging on the door of the big time right now, and I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's been an amazing journey. So I'm at a point in my life where lots of people are, okay, I'm X amount of years to retirement. Okay, I'm going to settle with this, and I have my money put away here. And I've done some of that as well. I'm not throwing all my eggs in the basket, because I don't think that's a smart move. But I've taken all the discretionary income that I have, and I've budgeted, planned it, and I'm going full in to going after my passion. So that's why I always say you're never too old to dream, or young for that matter. Because what's a dream? As soon as you stop dreaming, that's when you really get old, in my opinion.
No, I think that's a really beautiful message. Thank you, and thank you for sharing. I'm so excited about your getting this chance to talk to you. I mean, it's that you said that it rocks that you were on the same channel with John Lennon. It's like, no, legitimately it rocks, because you're doing music. We always say oh, you're a rock star, but some, you're like, wait a minute. So this wasn't, I asked you some questions, and I want to kind of get to that stuff. But one of the things that you just said really reminded me of, we have a lot of narratives, and I don't know if this is just America or it's sort of global, where the idea of success as an artist is either you're Beyonce or whatever. And I think there's this other place, right, where you can have the ability to do what you love and get connection with people around your art and make some kind of living, right. I know right now that's not, but I think it's possible. And it doesn't have to be this idea of intense stardom. It can be this fulfilling experience of I'm playing things, I'm creating, I'm connecting. You've got a following in Mexico. And not to say that couldn't, everyone has the possibility of that. But I think there's some wisdom and, I don't know, sustainability maybe in recognizing that that's fine. It happens. I don't, not everybody actually wants to bear this intensity of that kind of focus, but there's a way to be in it that's fulfilling and sustainable in some way, whether you make a living or you find a discretionary way, it's a hobby that pays for itself, and you get to be in that. I don't know. I just feel like that's an important thing, because I feel like sometimes there's this, I hear from people who are, because I do business consulting. So I hear, people, and there's a lot of messaging that sounds sort of if I'm not the best, or I'm not famous, or I don't make millions, somehow I haven't succeeded. I'm no, actually, I think there's a lot of ways to succeed before that happens.
Well, we get caught in the sort of societal pressure, societal movement. That success is deemed by how many times you're on a magazine, how many likes you get on Facebook and things like that. But in my opinion, success has to be internally defined. You got to define it within yourself. What does success mean to you? To some people, if you take in the music world, some people, success is just, hey, I learned how to play four chords on the guitar. That's success for that person. So you have to internally define it. Otherwise, you will never be successful. You will never have success. Success isn't an internal thing. So when I started this, I mean, my idea of success was doing what I love to do on a regular basis, recording music that I've heard in my head for years, and songs I've been writing all kinds of songs in the last year and a half. It spurned this internal success is getting more internal success within me. So I've had so much fun. Iceland. I can't describe how much fun I've had. And the people around me have often said, and I've had a few people message me on Facebook, and some have been friends. And now I'm starting to branch on getting people I don't know at all as my net kind of gets wider. And I've heard many times, Rich, you're inspiring. And I thought, inspiring? Really? I just do what I do. And I think that authenticity really resonates with a lot of people. And I'm glad it does. Because I think we need more people being authentic to themselves instead of trying to be what somebody else or some other societal representation tells them they should be. No, be what you want to be yourself. And that's what success is, in my opinion.
No, I think that's a great message. And it's funny, when one of my kids was 8 or 9, they were like, when I grow up, I'm going to invent a teleporter. And one of their family members is like, there's no licensing for that. You could start right now. And I always resonate. I was like, oh, that's a good point. That he was 9 and teleporters, but he could he could have studied physics and come up with something. I don't know. And it's like, either way, that discipline of attempting to learn something and attempting to create something, I don't think that is ever wasted. Whatever you're focusing on, if you're really trying to create, in the end, you're going to uncover something, even if it's what you don't like, and know, okay, next time maybe we'll try this other thing. And I love that. I love that this is your midlife crisis, because I do think we get to that point, right, where you're just sort of like, I checked a bunch of boxes, and some of the things are what I was hoping for, and then there's this other thing I lost track of, this passion I had for music, and I love that you embraced it and said, hey, I'm going to do this. And I definitely, part of why I started BiCurean is I feel like I see a lot of people limit themselves for one reason or another. And I think that's a lot of the harm that we live in. It starts with the harm we do ourselves by saying, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm too this or too that. Instead of saying, no, I'm just going to go practice and see what happens. And I love that. I honestly think it is inspiring. I love that you're putting that out there, because there's a lot of folks that, I think need to see that and be reminded, even if they know it, just to be reminded, oh, it's okay. And I think, let me ask you this, because I wonder if, I feel like there's a point in your life where you think you're supposed to know things, and you, it becomes harder to risk being an amateur, a colt on new legs in front of other people. Do you think that's part of a hesitation people have to get over to try something new like this? Or did you have to get over that? Or
Sure it is. Lots of people get entrenched within their own sort of sphere of self. And what I mean by that is you just get entrenched in your day to day. I think too many of us are defined by what we do as opposed to who we are. I'm a teacher, I'm a firefighter. No, you're not. You're a person. And what does what do you embrace? And what are the things that you do? And I work at a university during the day, and I spent years advising students. And I often they'd come to me all the time and say, Rich, I don't know what I want to be. I said, you are already something. It's not a matter of what you want to be. And I say, you go after the things that you like. So don't try and have a career define yourself. I say, you define your career. And that's the same for anything in life. You don't let life define you. You define your life. And I often think that people spend too much time looking at, when you're posed with a problem or you're posed with an issue, people spend too much time looking at the obstacles in front of them, or they look at the reasons why it can't be done. Screw that. Look at how it can be done. and then as you start working towards it, you overcome the obstacles. And if you take that perspective, it just becomes an obstacle and not a barrier. And there's a big difference between those two things. And I also think that too many people have excuses instead of reasons. Reasons and excuses are completely two different things. And, when I have such and such in place, then I'll go after that. Or when I get this, I'm going to go after that. Why do you have to wait? Why not just go after it? Why not start planning? Like you said earlier, sometimes you can just start planning, and that's a move in the right direction. And there's going to be some failures. Lots of people are subconsciously, unconsciously afraid of failure. We don't outright say to ourselves, oh, I'm going to fail, so I won't do it. But somewhere in the back of our head, we're always worried, oh, what if I trip and fall? So what if you trip and fall? That's how you learn. That's what makes you go forward. And if you go into things as realistic and as pragmatically as you can, it's a strange dichotomy that to pursue a dream and be internally successful, because you have to embrace the fact that you got to think way out there, and you break down all sort of mental barriers, and you got to think whatever is possible. But you also have to juxtapose that with a mindset that says, okay, I have to do my due diligence. I have to plan. I have to be pragmatic. I have to put things together appropriately. And those two things don't necessarily jive well together. For those who can make them jive, then, anything's possible, because that's, in my opinion, that's the ticket to just going for things. Be able to put the fantasy together with the reality and make something happen.
No, I think that's really true. I have a little encapsulation. It was like a goal without a plan is a wish. And in terms of just I used to say that to my kids, but also just for myself, like there's a lot of things that I'm happy to daydream about because they seem interesting. But if I haven't actually sat down to say, okay, and what's real about this, then it's really more of a wish than it is anything else, because it rarely, there are people that it happens to, but rarely do the things you want just randomly fall in your lap. You do have to put some effort out to make that happen. So something you mentioned, is this still happening? It sounds pretty cool. You're in the running to be the opening act at Audacity Entertainment.
Yes.
Okay. So
still in the running.
Let me put this link up, and will you tell people a little bit about this and how they can
thank you, Lisa. This is pretty darn cool. It's opening act, and it's run by Odyssey Entertainment, one of the big radio conglomerates in the U.S. And I'm in Canada myself, but Canadians are allowed to enter the contest. And what it is I've gone to the first couple weeks, and now it's getting tighter and it's getting harder to advance. And every week you have to be every week a few bands and artists get dropped out, and you keep getting the small select few at the end. And there's still about 3-4 more weeks to go. It's done by fan voting. So the winner of the contest gets to open a major performance at the Hollywood Bowl. You get $10,000 too, which is very cool. Don't get me wrong, but for me, it's all about the Hollywood Bowl. I want to play at the Hollywood Bowl. Life is all about experiences. It's not about dollars and cents. It's about experiences. And I would love to be able to play at the Hollywood Bowl and open a major act there. So if anybody listening wants to vote for me, please go to that link there and just cast a free vote for me via their Facebook profile. You can also see all my videos are on there, and you can see the kind of stuff that I'm doing and the music that I'm writing and recording. And it's a cool contest. And also it's put on for charity. They're sponsoring a suicide relief fund, I believe it is. So it's a real good charity that they're working towards as well. So it's a cool event all the way around.
Nice. That is fantastic. And I just popped your website up as well. So if you're looking for more information, or you want to listen to Rich's music is everywhere. I found it on my platform of choice, Apple Music. But if you want to go to his website, it has a link to every place you can hear what he's got going on, as well as listen to it there. And let me see. So we wanted to make sure I brought that up. And then the other thing that you were talking about in terms of your desires. So one of the things I always ask people is what are you going to create in this world? Like if you're successful in your dream, obviously there's what you're creating for yourself, right? And then but then that larger answer, and you shared some things, but I'll ask that I could bring up anything follow-up wise. But what is the small or large impact that this experience is going to have in the world?
Well, it's a great question, because I can give you a little bit of I'll give you the micro example and a more macro example. The micro is I've always had, as I told you, since I was a little boy, I've always had this passion for music. Started playing guitar seriously at 10 and 14, writing songs, and I had that moment where you're playing with the screens there. I had a problem for a second.
I'm sorry. I was like, you should be the big face because you're the one that we want to talk to, and I have to remember to switch that up.
People can see my Captain Kirk plaque in the background. I love Star Trek.
Yep.
Anyway.
Oh man, so you're sad like me about Nichelle's passing yesterday. Like that
I know
Saturday.
I saw that news. Went, oh no, another original Star Trek person passed away. She was a groundbreaker. Oh my goodness, was she a groundbreaker? Like holy cow, people do not realize what she did in the 60s. As a Black woman on a television show. She became a role model, a mentor for a lot of Black women. So great individual. Yeah. She became a spokesperson for NASA after that as well. And I believe she got a lot of kids involved and young women involved in math and science and STEM research and all. It's very cool lady. It's sad to her for passing. Anyway, where were we going?
Okay. Go back to what you were talking about. Your passions and
I had a micro example of what music can do. And it happened while I was raising my kids. We had a band. We played together 15 years, very good friends. And this one year we decided to do a charity function at a local hospital here in Vancouver. And the hospital was for kids with severe disabilities. And these kids, they had very little motor function. They were in wheelchairs, and it was very sad. So I went to this hospital, and we were playing in with our acoustic guitars. Didn't want to blow them away with the electrics and the crazy drums. So we're playing in a corner of the recreation hall, and they bring in about 15, 16 kids. And it's about 2 weeks from Christmas, and we're playing Christmas songs, and we're playing Jingle Bells and all the standards. And at one point, I'm playing Frosty the Snowman, and I'm singing. And there's this kid in the front. He's about maybe 10 feet away from me. And he's sitting in his wheelchair, and there's not a lot of recognition. I can't tell, the poor kid did not have a lot of motor function, put it that way. And all of a sudden, I can see the finger on his wheelchair starts tapping to the beat. And I didn't think much of it. But the nurse practitioner next to him she's doing this, and you can tell she can barely control herself. And she's trying to get the other staff members to look. And I guess this was a massive thing for this kid. He was tapping the finger to the music. And all the nurses are looking. You can see them in the back, and they start pointing, like, look, what's happening over there? And the whole sort of feeling in the room just lifted. And I had this moment where I thought, holy cow, the power of music. I mean, I'm getting just choked up just thinking about it. And that was an amazing moment for myself and the other bandmates. And when I was talking with just one of the other bandmates just last week, we were talking about this particular event. And it was so profound and impacted all of us. And then we started doing a lot of these charity functions. The next year we went to this hospice that was called Canuck Place in Vancouver. And it housed terminally ill children while they were receiving treatment. And it was right before Christmas, and everybody that was healthy enough to go home went home, except one little girl was still there. And we were there, and we played a concert for this one little girl and her mom and dad and the staff. And a couple months later, we got a letter from this girl's mother, and the girl since passed away. And she went on to talk about what an amazing night that was, how much it meant to her daughter and to her and her husband that we did this. And, and our drummer still has that letter. And that's sort of the micro example of what music can do. And that was a good 15 years ago. And now I'm at a point where, I want to go bigger. I want to take that, what I did for those little kids, and make it bigger, whether it be, a song that just makes people tap the steering wheel when they're driving down the road, or if it's a song that helps them through a breakup, or if it's a song that helps them grieve the loss of a loved one, whatever. Music has that impact. I love the idea that music can make that impact on people in so many different ways. And that's the macro. That's what I want to do on the larger scale. So that's why when you Google my name, I'm popping up all over the place. I'm working towards that. And
that's great.
Thank you. So I guess
it's true. Those songs become our friends. I mean, sure you probably have one. I know I have. I actually have a tradition I started several years ago with the streaming music, where every year at the beginning of the year I create a playlist, and any song that touches me or becomes meaningful or is nostalgia, so I could go back to 2017, and I have a list of songs that for whatever reason had moved me that year, whether and it's kind of a fun little time capsule that I create for myself. And they do. I usually find a song that's a theme, and they become your friends throughout the years. And so, I think that's really true, that it
becomes our soundtrack to life. I mean, look how important it is for people to pick the right wedding song, and how important it is for people to pick the right song at a service for a passing of a loved one. I mean, on and on it goes. Every moment in our life, we seem to accompany it with some kind of soundtrack. You do videos for people, and you accompany it with music. Music has a way, in my opinion, music has a way of you're able to relive a moment through a song, because a song is always live. A song is never static. Video can do the same thing too, but music is even more powerful, in my opinion, because it conjures up the images and the imagination in your brain. And then you can go wherever you want, and the music kind of floats you there and takes you there. And where else can you go back to a memory when you're 5 years old? There's no pictures or no video. Music can take you back there. And that's the wonderful thing. In any way, any moment, music can take you to anywhere in your life, at any point in your life. And it's super powerful. And that's what draws me to music, and always has. It kind of, in my opinion, it kind of transcends this sort of reality that we're in. It takes you to another level. And in my opinion, a wonderful level, if you let it. I mean, some people, you got to sort of open your mind and let it take you away.
Well, what's your soundtrack? Do you? It's like you don't have to pick too many. Maybe two songs. Not yours, because we know those are yours. But like the songs that have inspired you, or what was the song you heard that made you think, "Gosh, music for me," if you can remember, or
Well, I remember being an impressionable young kid when John Lennon passed away. And that's what hooked me into the Beatles, because suddenly there was this resurgence of Beatles music, and I just started guitar, and I was just a little kid, and I thought, holy cow, this music's amazing. And then I dove in. I realized Mom had all these old Beatles vinyl LPs, and I started playing them, and that drove me towards a big time towards music. And Elvis is similar, and because Mom grew up with it, loving Elvis, and so then I dove in the Elvis LP she had. So I started out with the King and the Fab Four. So I guess that's where my music push started. But it's funny because I had snapshots of certain songs, and for whatever reason, Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street always reminds me of a closing summer day. And whenever I hear Baker Street late in the summer, I always get very nostalgic. And I don't know why. That song, for whatever reason, just churns up a whole pile of awesome memories for me. Happy Xmas War is Over. John Lennon does the same thing, I think, because my mother used to love it so much. There's a couple, Jenny Dreamed of Trains. I'll go way out there. Vince Gill reminds me of my mother, and my mother since passed away, and her and I both were big Vince Gill country fans. And for whatever reason, when I hear that song, I think of Mom. So it's amazing what music can do. And I'm sure, actually, you go on, anybody listening could go on and on about this song reminds you of that song reminds me of that. And that's amazing, because when you hear those songs, you're right back there. I hear Vince Gill, and suddenly I'm with my mom again. And that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Let me think, what else? We talked about your Hollywood Bowl. What else do you have coming up? And do you play live music, or do you?
I don't at the moment. I don't know, but I'm itching to get back. It's been this for a few years now, but when I did this huge push, it's all about me. I have a recording studio and I'm in my recording room right now, where I've got my computer set up, and I've got all my plugins and all my effects, and I plug the guitar straight in the computer away I go, so I don't upset my neighbors, which is good.
Yeah.
I play the rock and roll guitar. I got the amplifier in the corner, but I saved that for other times. So I absolutely love what I'm doing, and I have another song coming out in approximately 2 weeks. It's called You're a Nice Guy, But the video, we just finished up the video, and I'm going to be releasing that to radio stations across North America, country stations as well as rock stations, pop stations. Because one of the interesting things about me, and this has been absolutely fascinating, what I discovered is the beauty of Spotify and YouTube. They all have analytics where you can track who's playing you, who's listening to you, what country they're from, how old they are, what gender they are. And one of the things I've discovered, I figured when I started this huge push 2.5 years ago, I started with the Christmas album. When I started this push, I would appeal to people in my age range, like 35 to 55-year-old age range. I thought that's what I was going to appeal to. And I do. But I'm looking at how many 18-year-olds like me. I'm looking at how many over 65, 70-year-olds like me. And it's coming straight across the board, where I don't have really these spikes in one demographic or another, which I absolutely love. I can't believe how many 18 and 24-year-olds are listening and watching my stuff. And I found this very interesting, because I've also discovered the problem. I'm having a problem breaking through in a lot of radio areas, and because the industry so genreifies everything. Well, Rich, what are you? Are you rock? Well, yeah, kind of. No. Are you rock? Then you must be indie rock, garage rock, punk rock. Whoa. And I stop and say, well, I'm kind of a little bit all of that. Really? Yeah. What are you? And I have a hard time when it says classify your music. I have to go, it's pop / country / rock. Throw a little bit of blues in there, some jazz in there, some big band, and you got what I have. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came back to the term rock and roll. And nobody usually uses that term anymore. And I realized that the origins of rock and roll in the 50s were an amalgamation of R&B, country music, jazz music, everything sort of mishmashed together to create rock and roll, because there are a lot of white kids creating rock and roll, but a lot of black people are already doing it. And but they just call it rhythm and blues. So suddenly, you take this sort of this big band melodic country music and put a R&B hardcore snare and rhythm behind it. Suddenly you've created rock and roll, because you've amalgamated all these different forms of music. And we sort of gotten away from that, because now we have to genreify everything. I love the days. If you go back and look at the top 40 in probably 1969, you're going to find Aretha Franklin on it. You're going to find Dean Martin on it. You're going to find the Rolling Stones on it. You're going to find maybe Engelbert Humperdinck on it. You might find not Dolly Parton, but just prior to that, you might find the Statler Brothers or other country artists. And you don't find that today. And that's a shame. And it's a shame, because we got people, I just listened to this. Well, if you just listen to that, you're also missing what's going on over here, which is some pretty darn cool stuff. And that's a shame. And I think that's one of the biggest problems the music industry has today. And it's actually a problem for me breaking into the music industry, because nobody knows where to classify me. I mean, over the last couple of years, as I push towards radio, I have a rock station say, you're too country for us. Country stations, you're too rock for us. A rock station, some will say, well, you're too vintage rock. The vintage rock will say, well, you're too modern rock. And some people say you're too punk rock. I kind of like when I get called punk rock.
No, it is a pretty big compliment.
It is. And it comes straight. I can think of I did a cover of the Beatles, I Saw Her Standing There, which is a single I put out in March. And I had a good friend of mine, he was a fellow musician, and he's listening to the drums and he's saying, well, Rich, you should have this beat going, that beat going. He says, it doesn't really fit the song. And I listened to what he wanted. I said, you want me to do a 60s beat? He's going, yeah. He says, no. If you listen to the music, listen to the drums, that's lifted right out of Green Day. He goes, huh? And he says, it's a Green Day drumming part. And I said, you listen to the guitars, it's early 80s Elvis Costello Clash. And he's going, huh? and if you listen to the bass, it's a Paul McCartney 60s, 70s bass, along with these punk rock guitars, along with a Green Day drummer, and then my distinct vocal style. And suddenly you got a completely reimagined rock and roll song. And that's my style, because all parts, I love the Beatles. I love Elvis Costello. I love the Clash. I love Green Day. I love all these bands. And it's created a very unique style, which I'm super, super proud of. And it's also been a problem, because now I'm having a hard time getting radio airplay. So what I find where I'm really connecting with people is when I go straight to Facebook and Instagram, and the average person doesn't give a crap what kind of style of music is. Do they like it or not? That's all they say. And I'm finding lots of people like what I'm doing, and that's pretty inspiring.
No, it's such a great feeling. I have obviously I do my podcast, and I have another one, and then I also I write. And whenever somebody specifically responds to an episode or a topic or something I've written and says they were touched, moved, open, whatever, it's just such a great feeling, like that opportunity to connect. And I'm, the truth is that for everybody that says they do, like, there's probably people that don't say anything, and then of course there's plenty of people that don't, and that's fine too, right? Like we all have those places that we fit, but it's such an amazing experience to create something and have somebody connect to it. It feels there's nothing like it. And then I popped this is your Facebook, and so Rich is everywhere. I popped his website up already, but that's his handle on Facebook or Instagram, which is one of the better ways to stay in contact. And vote, obviously I'll put that up again, and
yes, thank you.
Have a chance, because obviously that'd be pretty cool. You talked about already sort of your mantra, I guess. What's the best advice that you've either given, like, I don't know if this ever happens to you, if someone asks you something and it comes out of your mouth and you're like, wow, that was good. I don't know where that came from, or received in terms of your life or career or
there's so many little nuggets of things that I've heard along the way. And one of the things that I firmly believe that I think has really served me well is that you can learn from anybody in any situation. And so I found that I keep my mind open as possible. I go into situations, and no matter what, any social setting, I go in with an open mind, and I talk to people, and everybody has their own experience. Everybody has their own thing that they bring to the table and whatever. And I find that discussions with people of any type of discussion can be completely non-music related. Anything is a chance to learn. And I'm a huge advocate of education, whether it be formal education or education of life, education every day, just learning. And there's no better way to learn than talking to other people and find what their life story is and find what and you realize along the way that it's very humbling, because you realize along the way that everybody has dealt with problems. Everybody's dealt with obstacles and things that have made life difficult. And you also realize everybody's had that joy and that passion and everything else. And it's part of the human existence and who we are as people, to share that amongst each other and encourage each other. So I'm a huge advocate of learn, talk to people, learn with people. And more directly, when you're pursuing something, I firmly believe that you simply have to just keep on going. There's going to be times where you hear that, hey, you ain't got it, kid. Sorry, no matter what you're doing. And you have to say, okay, I'll just keep going forward. Learn from it. Take any constructive criticism that was worthwhile and move forward, and don't get defensive, and just keep moving forward. That's what it's all about. I love what I do right now. I get up every day and I'm excited about what I have planned for that day. And I wasn't able to say that about 5-6 years ago. So I'm super, super excited about the shift I've done. And I encourage anybody else to really, no matter what their dreams or passions are, to find ways to move toward it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's such a powerful message, that I think we'd see a really different landscape if more people felt that sense of being able to, whether they need to give themselves permission or seek support.
Yeah.
If more people had that sense of self-determination and connection to their passions. And I mean, we all have to like do stuff, right? Like I work with, like, I'm a consultant. I work with a lot of different businesses, and one of my messages is, in terms of your workload, unless it's about something necessary, like, taxes, it needs to be at least energy neutral, if not energy positive. Like if you're working 8 hours, 10 hours a day, then you need to make sure that you're doing things that either build you up and give you energy, or don't take away from you, unless it's one of those like very, very limited things that have to happen, and but creating that thought pattern, instead of, I don't know why it is that we, like, many of us equate suffering with work. and then there's just like, you get further and further under the burden of it. And then obviously people, and there's a lot of things around it. I'm not trying to judge or anything, but mostly to say like that there are places, almost always you can find a place where you can make a choice to add some kind of joy to your day.
Absolutely.
Or to someone else's. And
Absolutely.
I mean, that's always been my thing when I've been like overwhelmed, stressed, and depressed. I'm like, I don't know if I can do anything to make my life better, but I can ease this person's burdens. Yeah. That's something, right? And
which indirectly helps yourself too. I mean, we all feel good when we help somebody else. There's no question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's sometimes, and it's also sometimes easier on the outside. Like it's easier to say, oh, that would help, versus my quagmire of my brain. But at any rate, to go back to where you were in that moment of, like that, if we could create that space together for one another and for ourselves, like what would that be like to live in a world where that's how mostly where people are coming from? I think that'd be better. I'd like it. I imagine I'd like that better. I mean, I don't know, because I haven't been there, but I'd like to be. And thank you for being one of the people on that path and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Do you have any other thoughts, nuggets of wisdom, hopes, final words that you want to share?
No, isolated in lots of ways. You just summarized where I sit right now. I'm at a point, and I'm a huge advocate. Like I said earlier, I was an advocate of education, but I'm also a huge advocate of following your passions and following your dreams. Stop. I often tell, like I've said many times, and I won't ever directly point at somebody like stop making excuses. But as a general rule, excuses and reasons are two different things. And if you have a reason for not being able to do something, okay, that's tougher. But if you're making an excuse, stop making it and go for it. So, and everything's different because it's all relative. And I talked about success is internal. So, we all exist in certain realities, and certain realities sometimes are tough to change certain situations, but you can always change your reality to some certain degree. And there's success in that. And if you change it for the better, there's success in that. And success is good. No matter what level you achieve it, it's darn good. It's self-empowering. And you find that it's also infectious, and it helps those around you as well.
No, that's really true.
Final words, whatever it is, go for it. That's my final words. Yeah.
I like it. I'll do something and just be like, well, Rich said I had to. You know?
I like to sound positive. Isla, don't put any negative stuff on me.
No. Of course not. No, that's blame. We don't do blame here.
Yes. Blame's
Well, except with politicians. You can blame the politicians for everything. It's fine. But no people, I guess they are people. I don't know. No people I know. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to pop your website up again real quick. Just definitely go check out what Rich is up to. And I'll put that in the notes as well, so folks can be connected. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to do another show with Stephanie Hearn, who also is following her dreams. She got drunk and started a publishing company. So I'm very interested to hear about this, right? Right. And so, and thank you everybody for being here and for joining us. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.